Hey there. Have you ever had a question about God or Christianity or church, or maybe even about sex or race or whatever you can imagine? Here at Stonebrook, we want to answer those questions. Well, more than that, we want to have a conversation with you. So if you've ever had a question that you've been afraid to ask, what does Jesus think about the President of the United States? What is the relationship with Jesus like? If God really is all loving, why is there so much hurt in the world? What is sin? What is the point of church? Is premarital sex a sin? Is the coffee at Stonebrook really better than the coffee at home? Does God love me? Will any of this actually make my life better? We have an anonymous text line where you can ask us literally anything. And we encourage you, test us. Try to trip us up. We want to be a resource for you. And if we aren't having a conversation, then we can't really be a resource. So help us help you and help us help our community. Ask us the tough questions. You keep saying community. What does that actually mean? Is Jesus even real? I'm struggling with my marriage. Is there anything you can do to help? So hit us up, text us anonymously. You can check out our Facebook page or our YouTube. You can leave a comment. You can do whatever you need to do. We are going to open all avenues of communication just so we can hear from you. So what have you wanted to ask?
From the very beginning, when we started Stonebrook, we said we want to be a place where every member is a minister, where every member is a missionary, where we can equip. In fact, that's what, as we're trying to have this zero-based thinking, as we go back to the New Testament, that's what the Apostle Paul said the purpose of ministers was, to equip those that are Jesus followers to serve their friends and their neighborhoods and people in their community, and not just wait for Sunday morning where we get together and we have a great time. I think that will always be our rallying point, and that's what I want Stonebrook to become, a place where Stonebrookers all over the city are impacting their friends and neighborhoods and different organizations that need help, that certainly don't look to the church for help. So many times the church has been the ones that's going to the community asking them to help us. But we want to become an organization that resources the community. And then we get together on Sunday, time to time, and we celebrate, and we get encouraged, and we get more equipped and resourced, and we actually go to the community, and we impact people there.
Hey guys, some of you are wondering, is Stonebrook ever going to actually get together in person again? It's been almost a year since we had official meetings. So, we ever going to get together? Well, the answer is absolutely. February 21st, which is a Sunday, we are going to have a meeting here at Stonebrook in person. Stonebrook Center here in Waynesville. The catch is this is going to be a meeting that is only open to what we call the Dream Team. What is the Dream Team, you ask? Well, the Dream Team is anybody at Stonebrook that is involved in serving in any area. What we're going to do with Stonebrook, as we'll begin to reveal at these get-togethers, is we're going to actually build a brand new thing, a brand new entity, a brand new way of reaching out to our community here in Waynesville. It will still be called Stonebrook, but it will be, in many ways, very different. I'm very excited about it. I think it's something that all of you are going to love and enjoy. But at the center of it all, the focus, the foundation of everything we are going to do here is serving one another, serving others in our community, serving people that need our help in all kinds of different ways. So therefore, these first meetings will be for those that are focused on, that are centered around serving one another in our community. So you think, well, I'm not on the Dream Team. Don't despair. You can sign up for the Dream Team. You can go to www.stonebrook.tv/serve, and you can sign up online, and we would love to have you as part of our dream team. We would love to have you as part of our hangouts and get-togethers that will be coming up. The band will be there. I'm sure we'll have donuts and coffee, and it will be so exciting to see each other again. We are going to require social distancing. We are going to require you to wear a mask. It is our intent, because we are in a military town, because we have so many military people that are involved with us, and we want to reach the military, to comply with our military neighbors that are basically saying any business, any organization that has any get-together, you have to, put certain ways of meeting, ways of getting together, ways of interacting into place, one of them being wear a mask, have social distancing, in order for military people to participate. And we definitely want military people to participate. So that's Sunday, 10:30 in the morning, February 21st, and we'll be talking more about it, but just wanted to give you a heads up that there are good things on the horizon. Fear not, we are going to get together. We're going to have a great time. There will be childcare for your kids. We're not going to have the way we've had kids in the past at this particular time, where we have Kids Rock and Kids Zoo, but there will be childcare, and they will be taken care of. We're going to eat together. It's basically going to be a party. It's going to be so good to see each other. I don't know if we should be hugging each other, maybe, air high fives or fist bumps from a distance, but we really look forward to seeing you again, February 21st on a Sunday. See you then.
That's right. February 21st. Oh, sorry. I meant to start a different way. Hello. Welcome to Stonebrook Live, our special Valentine's Day edition. I've got in the booth with me today, Freddie. How are you, sir?
I'm good.
He's all good. Yeah. It's the day of love, Valentine's Day. Do you need some help there? There we go. So, yeah, it's Valentine's Day, the Day of Love 2021. If you don't have a significant other today, Happy Singles Awareness Day. Thank you, Heather. I didn't know that existed.
Yes.
So, yeah, we're gonna hang out today. We're gonna continue Mark's series, The End of the World as We Know It, with a brand new episode of Real Talk. If you're here, say hello. We want to say hi before we get things rolling. It's Valentine's Day, Freddie. What's that mean for you, man?
Really, to me, Valentine's Day, it's not really anything special. It's just another day, because you're not supposed to do something special for your significant other just because a day of the year. You're supposed to do it every day.
Yes.
So that's how I see it.
I had a conversation with someone yesterday. I'm not exactly, well, sometimes I'm over the top, but I'm not over the top like at home. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about do I do anything special for my significant other? And I was like, we take time every day to express our gratitude.
Right.
It's not the same as a bouquet.
Right.
It's not the same as a box of chocolates, but I think it is important to be said. You should love somebody every day.
Exactly.
But if you need an excuse to do something nice for somebody,
today's the day to do it.
Today is the day.
Today
literally
is that day. That's what today's for.
Happy day before cheap candy day.
Yes.
Silver lining. Y'all know exactly. I'm so happy to be a part of this community. If you're not in love, at least we have candy, right?
Candy.
Okay, let's see who else we got in the chat. Marty, you're always here. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Good morning. Montisha, same. Mindy, good to see you. It's been a little while. Let's see. Heather, we said hello to. Lisa, Christine McLean, and then Benet there at the end. If you're just tuning in with us, or maybe you're watching this later on in the week, feel free to go ahead and leave a comment.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
We'd like to still say hello, follow you, those kinds of things. And who knows, you may meet someone special in the chat.
Hey, it happened to me before. Not in chat, but the day before Valentine's Day.
Before Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it was weird.
So
I was like, now I got to get something for her because tomorrow's Valentine's Day.
I've never been in that position. Is that a real feeling?
Yeah, it was
that you have?
It was like, oh snap, man! Tomorrow's Valentine's Day. I just started this new relationship.
Yeah, let's break up and then get back together on Monday.
On the 15th.
On the 15th, exactly. I've never been in that situation. Have you been in that situation? Let me ask, maybe you at home today have forgotten that it's Valentine's Day. Maybe you're with your significant other right now, and maybe
you
you're getting
forgot,
dirty looks.
How did you forget?
But
Come on now. It's February 14th.
it is February
Everybody knows
14th.
that.
And let's bring it back down to Stonebrook Live. It is
Oh,
Valentine's Day.
yeah.
If you're at home right now with your significant other, feel free to spice things up. One of the beauties of having Stonebrook Online is that you don't have to wear pants. You can do whatever you want. And Valentine's Day, celebrate this morning. Celebrate love. Okay, before we get too out of control here. Mark's going to continue our series, The End of the World as We Know It. This week, we're looking back specifically at the second coming of Christ. If you're not a believer, you've never heard of that. It's something that Christians talk about a lot, the rapture, and then the beast. You've been in church for a while, Freddie.
Yes, yeah, I have.
I'm assuming, well, let me ask, anything that you've ever learned about the end times, has it always had kind of a dark, negative connotation? Has it always been something that's going to happen or has already happened?
It to me, and growing up in, like you said, growing up in church, like you hear about it all the time.
Yeah.
And then my personal feeling, like it's not really a fear for me.
Yeah.
I don't try to think about it too much or reflect on it too much. Like, I know it's coming if it hasn't came already.
Okay. Yeah.
Because people think it's already came.
Yeah.
Like, you had the scares in 2012 of the end
True.
of the world, and then again just in 2020
Yeah.
the scare.
Do you remember
of the end of the
Y2K? Do
world.
you remember
Yeah.
how terrifying that
Yeah.
was?
2000, yeah. Countdown 1999 into 2000.
I remember thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be alive after this.
Right.
There's so
right.
much fear
So
around it.
it's been there for the last, since I've been alive, the last 3 decades.
Yeah.
So I really don't pay it no mind because it hasn't happened.
True. And you're like, you hear it enough. Oh, this is the year.
This is it. The Mayans
year.
predicted this, and
Yeah.
I'm still here.
You're still here.
I'm still here.
That's true. And
We're
Mark,
still here.
true. And Mark is actually going to talk a little bit about, or maybe that was last week. I don't remember. But he's talking about a gentleman talking about 88 reasons Christ is going to come back in 88. I think he's about to talk about it. But it's interesting, how this idea of the end of the world can be a driving force
Right.
in religion. And in faith. It's more than just this is something we read about and try to explore. It becomes a motivating factor.
Because you're like, I gotta get what I can done before it happens.
Yeah,
It's like, oh man, the time is coming,
that's true.
and so it's like it drives you to do things you normally wouldn't do.
Yeah, and to see the world, to live in a way that's almost scared.
Mhm.
And I don't really know personally if that's what God wants. But Mark's going to explore this a little more in depth, not death. Well, he'd probably explore it then too, but that's a whole other thing. So thank you so much for hanging out with us this morning. We're going to continue our series with the next episode of Real Talk, and then afterward, we're going to do Booth Talk in our community group. If you've never heard of that, it's basically just a bunch of us hanging out and talking about random things. There's no real agenda other than having a conversation. So afterward, if you're in the in the community group, look out for Booth Talk. But it's good to have you back hosting, Freddie. It's been a little while.
It's been a minute.
And you're looking fresh too.
Hey,
Clean.
I got the pineapple on top.
All about it.
It's grown. It's grown out 2 years in April.
2 years. That's a long time.
Don't be
Real
jealous.
quick, Jen Ingersoll. It's too cold for no pants.
Long socks.
Long socks.
Long socks is what
Benet has got this down to a science. Okay, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We're going to go ahead and continue our stream this morning. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the chat below. Like I said, we'd like to follow and follow you. We really appreciate any interaction. Interaction with Real Talk and our Sunday morning live things is the majority of interaction we have right now.
It is.
Now, we are going to be meeting next week, the 21st.
I'm excited.
Dream Team only.
Dream Team only.
You can look for more information about that. But in the meantime,
In between time.
it's good to just hang out like this. So let us know you're here. Let us know if you disagree, agree with what Mark's going to talk about today. We just want interaction. So sit back, relax, grab another cup of coffee, put your arm around that significant other,
sit back, relax, and here's Mark.
Said it twice.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name's Mark, and I'm one of the leaders here at Stonebrook. I'm really glad that you're hanging out with us today. What we're doing is we're doing a series of messages on the subject, it's the end of the world as we know it. And the basic premise is that there is a general idea in society, especially among church folks, that we are in, quote unquote, the last days, and that soon Jesus is going to return in the sky, take us all the way to heaven. Bad things are going to happen here. Things maybe even at the end times, people talk about the Antichrist. We may get to talk about that, maybe not today, but the next couple of teachings. But as we look at what the Scripture actually says, and that's a big thing that we're trying to do here, is we want to really know, if we were in the first century when these scriptures, these documents were written, what did the authors have in mind? Were they thinking that 2,000 years from now there's going to be some big end of the world event and time is going to come to a close, Jesus was going to come, there's going to be evil that happens, but the Christians are going to heaven? Where did this all come from? And please go back and listen to the messages that came before. We've talked about a lot of this already. But a couple of reasons that I wanted us to really get this is, number one, I want us to understand who Jesus really is and how to approach understanding the Bible. Now, in a few weeks, we're actually going to start a brand new series. I'm not sure what we're going to call it yet. We may call it the Bible for Dummies. But not that anyone is dumb by any means. The Bible's an ancient book. It has some very difficult things to understand. It's another culture, another ancient time, and another part of the world. And so interpreting it, understanding it can be quite a challenge, but it doesn't have to be. But part of the reason that we're talking about the end of the world as we know it is to see from these scriptures, is this idea actually what Jesus taught and his followers, or have we brought to the text some preconceived ideas? And it will help us not only get that straightened out, but understand how to interpret the Bible in general. And that's what I want for everyone. You don't have to depend on a guy like me or some other preacher you know to have to interpret the Scripture for you and tell you what God's trying to say. We can all understand it. But another thing that I'm trying to sort of combat with this is this general notion in society, but especially in the church world, this apocalyptic mindset. Many times it can lead to sort of an apathy, especially among Jesus followers, who are supposed to be, according to Jesus and the mission he gave us, we're supposed to be making this world better. We're supposed to be making life better for the people around us. We're supposed to be loving our neighbors. We are supposed to be sharing this message of who God is and the way of peace and love in his kingdom. But if we have the idea that time is about to wrap up, things are getting bad, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, so we just need to sort of circle the wagons, build a fort, and hold on till Jesus finally comes, it can cause us to, maybe even unintentionally, sort of retreat away from what we're supposed to be doing and bringing God's kingdom to this earth. That's what Jesus told us to pray. Your will be done, your kingdom come in earth as it is in heaven. And it can cause us to maybe not do what we're supposed to do because we think Jesus is about to return any day. What's the use? In fact, when I went to Bible school, and I can't remember if I told this in a previous one or not. If I've already told this, act surprised. But when I went to Bible school, I started in 1987, and in 88, we were going into what would be the second year. But in 1988, a book came out, and I can't remember the guy's name, but the book was 88 Reasons Jesus Will Return in 88. And so a lot of the Bible school students were saying, well, I'm not going to come back next year because Jesus is going to return before this year is over. There's no use for me to go to Bible school. And so they had this apocalyptic mindset that there's no reason to really do what I feel God's called me to do because, hey, he's going to return, wrap this thing up. A lot of Christians actually charged their credit cards to the max, took out loans. It was just a big mess. And of course, Jesus didn't come in 88. And I kid you not, the same man wrote a book the next year called 89 Reasons Jesus Will Come in 89. It seems that some of us never learn. But I want us to have the idea that Jesus may never return in my lifetime, and so I need to be about our Father's business. So anyway, last time we left off with Jesus talking to his disciples about the destruction of the temple. We won't go through all of that, but Jesus is talking about an event that was going to happen in their lifetimes in the first century. He says, at that time, after the anguish of those days actually happened. We talked about that last time. The sun will be darkened, the moon will give no light. And I just wanted to review the fact that Jesus isn't talking about an actual, physical, literal thing. He's using apocalyptic genre, apocalyptic imagery, and an idiom to express that things are going to drastically change. The stars will fall from the sky, same thing, the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Then he said, everyone will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds with great power. Now, many people have said, well, this is the rapture. This is Jesus returning. And we got into this a little bit last time, and I just wanted to reiterate it, that Jesus is using what would be common knowledge to his disciples, imagery from an Old Testament book written by a guy named Daniel, hundreds of years before Jesus, of a vision he had. He said, in my vision, continued that night, I saw someone like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. This is the same terminology Jesus is using. Daniel isn't saying this was the end of the world and Jesus was returning in the rapture. He was just telling what was happening in his vision. He approached, in this vision, the Ancient One, who is God himself on the throne. One reason I wanted to go over this, we'll get to this a little bit later in another book. And it was led into his presence. He was given authority. Jesus, after he rose from the dead, the last thing he said to his disciples was, all authority has been given unto me in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go into all the nations and make disciples of them. Here it says he was given authority, honor, and sovereignty over all the nations of the world, so that people of every race and nation and language would obey him. His rule or his governance is eternal. It will never end. His kingdom will never be destroyed. Jesus is saying at this time when the temple is destroyed, the old idea of religion is over. It's the end of the world as you know it, as far as the way that you interact with God, the way that you think that religion works. Religion is basically over, and my kingdom, Jesus, my kingdom, will be the only kingdom that will ever last for eternity. We are to, in his kingdom, Jesus said it's not an earthly thing. It's not any earthly ruler at all. It's something that's in our hearts. It's a different way of living. It's a different way of seeing the world and seeing how to interact with God. Jesus, when he says, you'll see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven, is saying, the old way is over and my new way is now the prominent way to live and interact with God. And so he goes on, and here's something that's really interesting. Well, it's interesting to me. I hope you'll enjoy it. Jesus then says, remember, he's talking to actually 4 of his disciples, Peter, James, John, and Andrew, are asking him questions about when is the temple going to be destroyed? Not when are you going to return 2,000 years from now. But he says, now learn a lesson from the fig tree. I'll show you why that's important in a minute. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. Now, when I was a child, of course that's been a long time ago, but in the 70s, people used this term fig tree to try to make what Jesus was talking about apply to us in, at that time, the 20th century. And they said the fig tree is representative of Israel. Now, if you really stretch it and look through Scripture, you could say that a fig tree at times represents Israel and what's happening with them. But, so what they said was the fig tree beginning to bud means that when Israel became a nation in 1948, that is the fig tree beginning to bud, and that is a sign of the times that Jesus is about to return in that particular generation. Because he goes on and says, in the same way, when you see all these things taking place, you can know that his return, talking about himself, Jesus, is really close, is right at the door. Then he says, I tell you the truth, this generation. Now that's a problem if you think that the things that Jesus is talking about, the Son of Man returning in the clouds, and one being taken, the other left behind, if you think it's talking about some far-off distant future, it's really a problem when Jesus begins to say things like this generation. He's talking to people in the first century. And so in order to get around that, they would say that the fig tree, when it begins to bud, that's Israel, the generation that sees Israel become a nation won't pass away. Well, I began to ask about these things before all these things take place, Jesus said. I began to ask about these things when I was a kid, and I was always the guy in the back, how long is a generation? Well, they would say 30, 40, 50 years, for sure no longer than 70. And so in my mind, I simply went, check, 70 years. So when Israel becomes a nation, Jesus has to return within 70 years, this generation. Well, there's a little problem with that. So we were 70 years in the year 2018. Here we are, 2021. As far as I can tell, Jesus has not returned. One reason that he hasn't returned is because he's not talking about this here. But for those of you that want to say, that have maybe heard, well, the fig tree represents Israel. Well, 70 years has passed, and still Jesus hasn't returned. He goes on and says, however, once again talking to his disciples, no one knows the day or hour when these things will happen. These things, talking about the destruction of the temple, not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. He said, I don't even know. Only the Father knows. And then he says, and since you don't know when that time will come, be on guard. Stay alert. Jesus, in talking to his disciples, was warning them. And in fact, it was so good that he did warn them because they obeyed some of his, they obeyed his warnings, and they were able to flee Jerusalem in time. They were able to get away from the Roman army, and they actually survived. All these things that Jesus was talking about have already taken place. He was not talking about a far distant return. Now, we had a question sent in, and I want to start talking about it the rest of this particular Sunday, and then we'll continue on it the next Sunday. But this question is very telling, and sort of gives us some things to talk about. And I love that you send in questions. 415 SB Rocks. Send any questions that you have, and we'll do our best to talk about them. As I said in this series, we're just kind of nerding out, taking our time, and just going into some things we usually don't have time to talk about when we do a particular series. But here's the question. This person says, I've been watching the Revelation series. Awesome. And then clappy hands. We like clappy hands. Thanks. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. But I want to point out something that's interesting here. And this isn't to say anything bad at all about the person that asked the question, but it's very revealing about how we bring our preconceived notions to things that the Bible says. This person says, I've been watching the Revelation series on the book of Revelation. Time out. We're not talking about the book of Revelation in this series at all. People assume when you say, hey, we're going to talk about the end of the world as we know it, well, you must be talking about Revelation. When in all honesty, the book of Revelation is not talking about the end of the world at all. Now, most people think, well, of course, the book of Revelation is talking about the future, it's talking about the Antichrist and all those things. Well, actually, the word Antichrist is not in the book of Revelation at all. It's not there. And so we'll talk about some of these things, but I love this question, and it helps us to see and sort of examine ourselves. Are we actually interpreting and understanding what Scripture says, or are we just listening to something that we've heard and inserting it into the text where the text isn't saying that? But anyway, this person goes on and says, who is the beast, and what is his mark we're not supposed to take? Again, some very telling things. And if you don't understand what this is, in the book of Revelation, and this is something that in popular culture, people talk about the mark of the beast, the number 666. people don't really know why they think it, but if they hear 666, they're thinking, ooh, that means something evil is happening. So that's a bad thing. That's the devil, 666, the Antichrist, the beast. I'm supposed to not take this mark. In fact, my wife, when she was a young child, she didn't grow up in church at all. And so she didn't have a lot of teaching of the Bible, but her mother sat her down one day and said, okay, there's going to come a time where you may have a choice to get the number 666 put in your forehead or your forehand. Don't do it or you'll go to hell. So that's something that just the general knowledge of the culture. By the way, I don't know if you can hear it. We are videoing during the day here at Stonebrook, and we have a daycare, about 150 kids here. And in the background, kids are screaming. I just want you to know there's no torture happening in the background here. We don't have kids tied up, spraying them with water hoses or anything. But they're just having a good time in the play area. So I have no idea what we're talking about. Oh, the mark of the beast. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this, but this person in this question even assumes that the beast means a who. So I'm actually going to talk a little bit about the book of Revelation and sort of try to answer this question, discuss this question at least. The thing about Revelation is it's a highly figurative book. It is not meant at all to be taken literally. It's written in what historians would call apocalyptic genre. Very popular in the first century in all the Mesopotamian region, that people had this mindset of there's going to come some big event. We're not really sure what it is. The Jewish people thought it was going to be the Messiah coming, and that there would be an eternal kingdom that would happen there with whoever the Messiah was, and that this would be an eternal thing that happened forever, and the world would completely change. And in that sense, it would be the end of the world, but then we would go into this time of bliss and sort of nirvana, first century style. And so there are so many writings that had this sort of dark imagery, this impending doom that wasn't necessarily always talking about impending doom, but they used this imagery to express something else. It's not to be taken literally. They're using these highly creative and colorful depictions of things that are happening in nature, all kinds of different beasts and creatures doing all kinds of strange things. They don't expect it to literally happen. It's intending to express something sort of in code. And that's what's happening in Revelation. To sort of set it up, the Apostle John, who was one of Jesus' closest friends, this is several decades after Jesus has been crucified, risen from the dead, and the Christians of the first century are being persecuted mercilessly by the Roman Empire. And so John is writing to them to encourage them to be strong in the face of persecution, because Jesus has already won, and that they will indeed win if they will stay true and faithful to Jesus' way, to Jesus' kingdom way. And so he's writing this in a sort of a code that only this community would understand. The general people of the Empire of Rome wouldn't get what he was saying, so he's getting a message across. So I don't know if you ever did that in kids. You came up with your own code and you passed notes in school or whatever. So the teacher couldn't figure out what you were saying, but everyone in your club knew what you were saying. And this is the very similar thing that's happening in the book of Revelation. And so John starts here. He says, look, he comes with the clouds of heaven. Let me see. Where have I heard that before? This, once again, is very similar language that Jesus used to describe his kingdom being established. He comes with the clouds of heaven. Everyone will see him, even those who pierced him, even the people that crucified him. This is not something. The book of Revelation, once again, is not talking about something in a far off time. It's talking about something that is currently happening in the first century. Again, we have "and all the nations." When the Jewish people talked about all the nations, they simply meant everyone who isn't Jewish, the outsiders, the Gentiles. All the nations of the world will mourn for him. Yes, amen. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Revelation, and we only have a few minutes left here, but there is a key thing that happens in Revelation chapter 5. I want to share it. We'll maybe even get into it more next time. This is the key to understanding what John is trying to communicate in Revelation. It says, then I saw a scroll. Of course, in our terminology, it would be a book. They didn't have actual books. This rolled up piece of paper with information on it. There's knowledge on this scroll. In the right hand of the one who was sitting on the throne. If you remember earlier, Daniel shared a vision of one that was sitting on the throne. The Son of Man came in with the clouds of heaven, Jesus is saying that to him, and approached the one that was seated on the throne. John is using that same imagery for his Jewish audience that understands. Sitting on the throne, there was writing on the inside and the outside of the scroll, and it was sealed with 7 seals. So here we have some sort of knowledge in the right hand of God that we can't open. It's sealed up. The scroll actually represents everything that God is. This is who he is. This is his nature. This is what God is like. And it's sealed up. And so I saw a strong angel who shouted with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to break the seals of the scroll and open it?" In other words, who can reveal to us who God is? It goes on and says, but no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll and read it. John says, nobody could show us who God is. The scroll is remained sealed. Now, this is really similar to something else John, the same author, wrote in his gospel about Jesus. Talking about Jesus, he says, no one has ever seen God. This word seen elsewhere in the New Testament is translated understood, to understand. John is saying no one has ever understood God. It's the same thing as saying there's a scroll in his right hand, everything that there is to know about him, and nobody can open it. But the unique one, talking about Jesus in this case, who is himself God, is near to the Father's heart. He has, look at this word, revealed. John, writing in a book called Revelation, is talking about that God needs to be revealed. Here he says, no one has ever known God, but Jesus has revealed God to us. It's the same author talking about the same thing. We go back, and John says, then I began to weep bitterly because no one was found worthy to open the scroll and read it. John just breaks down crying in this vision. We'll never know who God is. But then, one of the 24 elders said to me, now this is really important, we'll wrap up with this, and we'll get into it more next time. One of the 24 elders said to me, many times through the book of Revelation, you will see John setting up a contrast between what he's just heard and then what he sees. He hears one thing, but then he looks and sees something entirely different. The 24 elders said to me, stop weeping, look, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the heir to David's throne, has won the victory. He is worthy to open the scroll and its 7 seals. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this. There is nothing that will get Christians more excited. If you're a preacher, let me give you a little tip. If your audience is going to sleep, but they're a bunch of Christians, if you can work in the phrase with some enthusiasm and passion, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, they'll get really excited. Christians love to think of Jesus as a lion. Now, and like I said, our timer's running off, but the phrase, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, does anyone know how many times that's mentioned in the Bible? Anybody? I'll wait. Dun, 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 dun. Time's up. Once. Just once. as many times as I've heard people talk about the Lion of the tribe of Judah and Jesus being this lion, this roaring lion, he's working in power and he's coming back in glory and he's about to kick butt and take names. The Lion of the tribe of Judah once, just once. And as we'll see next week, John actually corrects the imagery of the lion to something entirely different, which is the key to understanding the book of Revelation. So that's all the time we have for today. We'll pick this up next week. I wish we could go a little longer, but thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great Sunday, and I'll see you back here. And by the way, you can watch these anytime. If you're watching on Tuesday night, I want you to have a great Tuesday night. And but we'll have a brand new one next Sunday, 10:30, same place. See you then. Thanks, guys.